Greetings. This is Arvette McLean of Speak, The Universe Listens. As a very young person, I always felt that I carried the weight of the world on my shoulders, having to make grown-up decisions in order to survive a life marked with physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. While my face was smiling on the outside, on the inside, I always secretly cried and felt miserable. However, over the years, I learned some gems that helped to turn my life around. I now get to live the life of my dreams, filled with love, travel, and wonderment. And I am absolutely passionate about sharing what I have learned with you. If you want to live your best life, tune in each week as I, along with some amazing guests, share these life-changing gems with you. Inspired to be more, do more, have more. Greetings and welcome to today's episode, Getting Ready to Receive. Again, we have our special guest co-host with us, Marie Ipoli. And again, Marie Ipoli is a licensed clinical social worker, and she also happens to be my best friend, and she's joining us for a few weeks, being a guest co-host. And today's topic, again, is about receiving. And one of the greatest ways to get in the mood or the mode of receiving is to really talk about giving. And I think Marie is an excellent guest on this topic because I don't know how many years ago it was, but when she was doing a Lent thing, one of the things that she decided to do for Lent was if someone gave her a compliment, let's say, for example, if someone said, "Oh, that's a nice pocketbook," she would literally take everything out of her pocketbook and give it to the person who complimented it. And so she made that a practice during her Lent season. And she kind of continues it. And I shouldn't say it because I don't want everybody saying, "Ooh, cute dress." But as a result, I had a group that I was in, and it was a group of maybe about 8 ladies in the group. And then we made it a practice amongst ourselves as well. And so if anybody in the group said, "Oh, I like those earrings," then the person would take the earrings off and give it to them. And I just think that was a wonderful example of giving because that's a different type of giving. So why did you?
Well, for Lent, I always choose something to do, maybe one or two things. And that year, I had chosen to do what they called a love fast. And it was actually an Oprah article that I read. I was like, But it was different. It was about fasting from love, as in, people are always wanting to receive love. Wanting to receive compliments. You want other people to give to you. So the fasting part of it was fasting away from you wanting it given to you. Instead, you give it to others. So that did include, if you saw someone, you wanted to compliment them, compliment them. If someone saw something that I had, granted, I did not give away my house or my car. So those things were were off limits because I needed to get to work and I needed somewhere to live. But I also wanted to feel like I wasn't tied to anything. Like things are just things. People and how you make people feel, now that's different. And so okay, I will do this love fast. And I did not tell people, look, I'm doing this love fast, and if you say this or if whatever, then this is what's going to happen. I knew, I had it written down, and then whenever I would meet someone or whatever, if they said, "Oh, very nice earrings," I would love those earrings, I would take them off and give it to them. And it felt really good, actually, and at the end of it, that's a practice I would like to continue. And I continue that practice. But along this because I did two things that year. It was that, and then it was fasting from like fast food or anything like that. So what I would do is, if I wanted fast food, instead of purchasing it, I would say, okay, so how much would that McDonald's meal, whatever, cost? And instead of purchasing that, I would take the money and I would put the money away. And at the end of the fast, I gave the money.
Yeah, and I can just think of so many examples of you and giving. So I remember we went to Tijuana. Yes, and so there it was like a bartering thing. So we kind of went shopping or something like that. And so I guess you're supposed to try to talk people down on their prices. And so everybody's like, oh, I got a good deal and that type of thing. And Marie is like, how much is it? $10? Would you take 20 for it? But I'm exaggerating a little bit, but she definitely did not want to knock the price down, and then she would probably give a tip on top of it. So talk to us about that.
Well, and this is, I grew up knowing what it was like not to have, to be poor, put cardboard in the bottom of my shoes and not lift up my feet as I walk, those sorts of things. So I knew what it was like not to have. And I guess just not wanting other people to feel that way too. I started this practice of just telling myself and reminding myself that I'm not in that space anymore, and that in giving, it doesn't mean now I've given, I don't have. I will continue to have. I will always have. And so I had that in my mind, like I'll always have. So why not give? And as I'm giving to this other person, I have family, I'm originally from Haiti. I have family in Haiti who are doing the same thing that they're doing. And I would love it if somebody, instead of saying, oh, okay, well, knock $5 off, or not, giving them what they think it's worth. So I just got into a practice of just reminding myself that I will always have, and that giving it away doesn't mean that I no longer have. The act of giving is also the act of receiving. It's both in one, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So along those lines, because I could keep talking, and I love to give. I tithe 10% of my paycheck every time I get paid. I also have more than one bank account, because I have my bank account that I pay my bills and everything off of. But then I also have another account, and it's my giving account. So the money from my giving account comes right out of my paycheck and goes into that account. And with that, I have charities and different organizations I give to, and then the extra money, whoever else needs it, gets it. And I've never been without.
And that's like I guess one of the principles is, well, really giving and receiving are like the same side, or two sides of the same coin. And so a lot of times, I do want to come back to this though, a lot of times we do one side of the coin, we give, but then we might not do the other side, which is receive. So I want to come back to that in a moment. But as far as the giving piece, I think that like the way that you give, and just the whole principle that you just discussed in terms of, I'm abundant. It's always going to be more. I'm not in that space of lack. It's not taking anything away from me to give. Like, I might as well give. Like, that's like a beautiful principle, and that is kind of one of the laws of the universe. The more you give, the more you will have to give. So you were also saying, from the perspective of the brain, what happens in the brain and in the body when you give?
Oh, well, dopamine is released, which feels good. So the act of giving also feels good. So you are receiving a feel good feeling from giving. And that's also one of the reasons why if somebody is feeling bad, we'll use the word bad, but if you're going through a certain a situation, feeling kind of depressed, low, you might hear someone say, well, volunteer or do something for somebody else. And you're thinking, what? I feel terrible. Why would I want to go out and do something for somebody else? But the act of giving, doing something for somebody else releases that feel-good feeling. And the more you do that, you find yourself being lifted out of that depressed feeling.
Yeah. So that's a good point, because one thing my mom would always say is that you should only do things that you want to do. So, for example, you should only give if you want to give. Like if you're not giving from the heart, then the gift wasn't truly given, and it doesn't actually benefit anyone. And, I've also heard like a lot of gurus say that same type of thing. And it was hard. That was a hard concept for me, because I know to this day that a lot of people are very thankful for things that I've given, even when I felt like I didn't want to give anymore. But I do realize that it was not that I didn't want to give. I was just tired. I was exhausted. I felt like I didn't have anything else to give. But if I wasn't in that space of exhaustion, then of course I would have wanted to give. But like a lot of times people are saying you were the only one there for me. And if it wasn't for you, I don't know where I would be. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to, I guess, negotiate, only give from the heart, or because you want to, etc. But the whole thing about giving and receiving is that it has to be a balance. And a lot of times we're not given enough. Like there's more that we could do. And the example that you just gave, it really reminded me of when I used to work with children. And a lot of times they were, not in a situation where they felt good about themselves. And mostly they were kind of used to like people helping them, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And we made it a practice that we would actually have them go out and do volunteer work and give back. And I remember that in the beginning, like every time it was their first time to volunteer, they never wanted to do it. So we would kind of like force them to do it, make them do it anyway. But it was like once they did it, they would feel so great, and then they look forward to going back to do it again. And so that's a really good example, or a good, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? A good, I guess, reason why they felt good about it, because they're actually creating dopamine.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, you build relationships through that. You make connections, and that also feels good, too.
Yeah. And so I do want to talk about things that, what are ways that we can increase our giving. So the whole concept of giving only when you want to, sometimes I feel like you have to push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone and give a little more than you want to. And then that will become, like you say, something that feels good eventually. But sometimes I do think we have to push and give more than we're currently giving.
I would agree, because a lot of times we think that that's all I can give. And then when you give more, you find out, oh, I can give a little more. Oh, I can give a little more, because things open up for you to do that. Mm-hmm. Even I volunteer at my church. It started off as one time per month, but now, it quickly turned into every Sunday that I volunteer with the kids. I love doing it. At first I thought I could only do it one time per month, but things began to open up so that I could do it every Sunday. And I look forward to doing it. And I don't have any children, but I'm going to tell you, there are so many days where, oh, I've had a very difficult week or whatever, and it will be one child who just comes and just hugs me and says, I love you. Hey, where is this coming from? And I needed it. And I don't know how the kid knew I needed it, but the kid knew that I needed it and did that. And even with the giving, this is something I learned from you, and I don't know how this fits, but it had to do with borrowing, because when people ask to borrow and then they don't pay back, and then they're like making up excuses as to, oh, I'm going to pay you back, I'm going to pay you back, I'm going to pay you back. Then they try to avoid you, and, because they haven't paid you back or whatever. And I remember we were having a conversation. You had said something about, if someone borrows, just counting that as a gift, and not expecting it back, but just not relying on that they're going to give it back. And so I was like, So I started to change it to, so if somebody would come and borrow, I need to borrow $300 or whatever, I would say, okay, if I had the $300, which I usually did, let them borrow the $300. In my mind, it was a gift. Interestingly enough, I get paid back the money now more so than I did when they borrowed it.
Interesting.
Because I count it as a gift. If they pay me back, they do. If they don't, doesn't matter. It's like, that's it. And I've gotten paid back more. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But I got that from you, so I don't know if I'm using it correctly.
Well, I'm glad it's working. It works for you. Good. And then, I think for me, ways that I can give more is just making sure I remember that I'm in relationship with another person, and remembering to do things like look people in their eyes when I talk to them, or remembering to smile when I'm interacting with people, and remembering that it's not about what it is I'm trying to get right now. Like, it's a person. And think about what can I offer them in this interaction. So I guess being less self-centered and more into, like you made the comment a little while ago that everybody's looking for compliments and everybody's looking for reasons to feel good. And so the way I have increased my giving is to increase ways that I can help people to feel good.
And that's very nice. And I really do understand that, because just being present in the moment is a huge gift.
Yeah.
And it is something that, as we move more toward the use of cell phones, and that people lose out
Yes.
on that connection.
Okay, yeah. And so, the topic is giving and receiving, and we spend a lot of time talking about giving because that's the easiest way to receive. Like, whatever you want more of, you give that. If you want more joy, you give joy to others. If you want more kindness, you give kindness to others. If you want to be appreciated, then you appreciate others. So that's the quickest way to getting what you want, is by giving what you want. But also another thing about giving is that it opens up the space to receive. And I know earlier this year, we had a podcast that was really talking about cleaning out your environment, like donating things, just clearing your space. And when you do that, you open up space to allow more things in, more things that you love, instead of just that stale stuff that's just there taking up space and taking up energy. But the receiving part, like a lot of us are givers, but then we don't tend to receive. So do you have any comments as it relates to your ability to receive?
That was something that was very difficult to learn. Very, very difficult to learn to do, because, and I guess it was tied to how I felt about myself, because I felt great about other people, but not so great about myself. And so when someone would try to give something to me, oh, no, that's okay. You need it. Even though I might need it. I would say, oh, no, you need it. And depending on who they were like, okay. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, man, I really needed that. Should I have really said that? But learning how to just say, okay, thank you. And receiving, even though I may not need it. And what I mean by that is, and that was something else I had a conversation about, allowing that person, because they're giving, so if I don't receive it, so am I blocking them and keeping them from that circle of giving, receiving, giving, receiving, giving, receiving. So if I say no, it's like that I just stop that.
Right, so they don't get to feel the dopamine pumping through their body.
No, they're like, why isn't she taking this? Did I do something wrong?
Right, so, and that's one thing too that I have to keep in my mind, because people love to do things for you. Like, that makes people feel good. And a lot of times, that's one of my main sayings that I will say is no thank you. Like, it's automatically rolls off my tongue. No thank you, no thank you, no thank you. But keeping in mind that people would love to do these things for you, and that when you're saying no, like you say, you're blocking their blessing. So you're blocking your own and you're blocking theirs at the same time. And so I really need to get into practice, and I keep telling people, try to help me to say yes, please. Yes, please, instead of no, thank you. So how are you able to kind of make that transition into saying yes?
Well, it has been a very hard transition to make, but I think things kind of changed when it was a couple people who did some things for me. And one example is I had a bunch of reports to complete, and I had scheduled the time, written out everything, prepared to do it. When I went into the system to get my reports done, they had all completed by someone else. And the feeling was just so good, like, oh my goodness. And the realization that, oh, I've been missing out on this feeling. So it's okay, and I did not tell the person, oh, don't ever do this again. As a matter of fact, I looked forward to the next time that was done.
Okay. So I remember when I lived in Barbados, we made a conscious decision to not have a vehicle, so we were forced to use public transportation. But I used to travel to a group called Toastmasters, and to get there, I had to walk a mile, then I had to take a bus, and then I had to take another bus, and then I had to take a cab. So, which was fine during the day, but at night, trying to get back, that was too much to try to do. And so I was like, well, I can't be a member of this club because it's too far away. But the club members were like, if you get here, someone will take you home. And I'm just like, what? Like, the ideal of going somewhere, not knowing how you're going to get back. First of all, that's crazy to me, right? And then just to be trusting that someone's going to bring you back. But then being the recipient of someone doing this act of kindness for me every other week, or whatever, that was a little much for me. And so I made the comment to one of the people who was taking me home one night, and I was just like, basically I feel bad that you guys have to take me home and things like that. And he was like, no, we love taking you home. And he was like, I imagine that you're a really kind person and a very giving person in your country. And so you're just getting back a little bit of what you've given, and we feel good about that. And he's like, you don't always get it from the person who gave it to you, but you're going to get it back, and this is just coming back to you. And I was like, oh, okay. And so after that, I was able to, comfortably accept being on the receiving end. But the whole thing with making yourself ready to receive is we do have to make sure we balance that equation between giving and receiving. So some of us have to work a little harder on giving, and then others of us have to work a little harder on receiving. And if you're like me, you got to do a little bit of both. But like the receiving part is you have to be able to remove the blocks. Because if I can't receive from you, how am I going to receive the abundance that the universe is trying to flow into me? And so the more that I'm able to remove my blocks to receiving, the more I'm opening up that space so that the energy can flow in the direction that I would love for it to flow into. So we have to really practice doing both. Practice being a giver, practice being able to receive, and open yourself up to the blessings of the universe. So thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Oh.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll be here next week. Thank you guys. We'll be back next Wednesday. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you check out my website at arvettemclean.com and subscribe if you haven't already by clicking the link below. Until next time.